You are tuned to Kennett Zenith Cablevision. Thank you for watching. It's time for talk. Each evening at this time, Monday through Friday, Rosemary interviews local personalities and others who bring items of interest to this community. Time for Talk is a community betterment service. Tonight, Rosemary takes us by means of portable camera out of our studios and maybe into your neighborhood. And now, it's time for Talk.
Joan, you found some interesting things. I read that it's some things that raise eyebrows. Is this true?
Yes, it is. While I was working in Jefferson City on some Supreme Court documents, I ran across one that dealt with Dunklin County. I knew that Dunklin County's records had been destroyed by a fire, and...
Now, we're talking the courthouse in 1872, right?
In 1872, yes. And that was just one of the cases that I put a flag on to go back and look at it. When I did it, I discovered that it was a fraud case, and it involved 40,000 acres of swampland. No. By some hook or crook.
Probably crook, the way it sounds.
Probably. The county court commissioned Rathbun to make a contract with someone to clean out the Varner and St. Francis rivers to make them navigable for boats. Within a matter of months, Mr. Suggs' store that he had here in Kennett went bankrupt. He had no property since he had deeded all of the swampland over to his brother to satisfy the judgments. Wiley P., the younger brother, went to the creditors and offered to give them swampland in exchange for their debts, the judgment that they got against Mr. Suggs. But he wanted to do it at a rate of $10 an acre, when the land was only worth $1 per acre. Of course, the creditors immediately started hollering foul. They said that this was fraud, this was collusion, and it very obviously was. The brothers' main intent was to get the land, get it into Wiley P.'s name. William S. would declare bankruptcy. They would force the creditors to take some of the land. But in the end, William S. would be out from under his debts, and he and his brother would also retain about 98% of the land.
Do you want to buy some swampland in the Boot Hill? Do we have a story that has unfolded here? We're in the Susan Luce, Recorder of Deeds office. We're here with Joan Fizor, who's the local records archivist. She's been digging through some records, and back in 1872, there were some things that went on. 40,000 acres of swampland. You won't believe this story. We heard the first part, and now let's hear the conclusion.
There were a group of men that were honest in wanting the rivers to be cleaned out.
Okay.
But then you also had those that saw a way to become wealthy with very little effort.
And really, they're trying to clean out all the stumps and the trees. They're trying to clean this out with just a fishing boat and no equipment on it?
Correct. I think by reading the testimony.
Now, how do you know this? How did you discover this? You don't have newspaper articles from this time, do you?
I don't have newspaper articles, but I do have testimony taken at several different times throughout the years, because this court case was in the court system for 29 years.
Mm.
There were 3 separate and very distinct cases tried in circuit court, and the Supreme Court listened to the case 5 different times. So there was lots of testimony to read.
Okay.
But from reading the testimony from people who had lived in the area all of their lives, who were there prior to the New Madrid earthquake, it was very obvious that the river was full of sunken trees.
Okay, now you have the testimony of people before 1812. to 1811 and 1812, about the shape of the river.
People who were living in the area at that time, yes.
All right.
And these same people would testify that they attempted to travel down the Varner and St. Francis rivers before the contract to clean them out and afterwards, and there was no improvement. It couldn't be done. You just could not take a boat of any size down the rivers.
Meanwhile, had the land transfer, the 40,000 acres, already gone to the Suggs, into the Suggs' hands?
That is debatable. That is one of the controversies surrounding this entire issue. The Suggs and those involved with them claimed that the county commissioners gave them patents and that the patents were recorded.
Okay, a patent is the same thing as a deed?
A patent is a piece of paper that the county court would issue to an individual, and then that individual would take that patent to get the deed, and then the deed would be recorded.
Okay.
The rumor was that the courthouse would be burned to dispose of records pertaining to this land transaction and the $80,000 bond. The rumors had been going around for several days prior to the actual burning. So it was common knowledge that the courthouse was going to be burned.
It was. Now, how do you know? Is this written somewhere?
This is testimony from different individuals.
All right. So we know the courthouse is going to be, it's a wooden structure at this point. It's a wooden structure.
Yes, it is, and it wasn't even a completed structure. They were in the process of building the courthouse to replace the one that had been burned during the Civil War. The courthouse burned. The county justices rented William S. Suggs' store building for a year to act as a courthouse, a temporary courthouse. And I find that rather suspicious because if the rumors were going around prior to the April burning of the courthouse, that the courthouse would be burned, the justices knew about it. They had probably heard the rumors. They probably knew that Sugg was being accused. But yet when the courthouse is burned, they go to Sugg and rent his empty store building. I just found that was rather unusual that they would rent a building from the man that rumor says had the fire started.
Okay, now, when the courthouse burned, now tell me the critical records that also burned at that time, regarding this case, of course.
The record of patents.
That the 40,000 acres.
For the 40,000 acres.
Okay.
The contract between William S. Sugg and the county justices
To clean out the
to
ditch.
clean out the ditch.
Okay.
The $80,000 bond that Sugg was supposed to have given the county
Okay.
justices. All of the patent books, all of the deed books, anything that pertained to land transactions was gone.
Okay.
Or so the county thought. The administrator of William S. Suggs' estate just happened to be the deputy sheriff under Rathbun.
I see.
He was also a brother-in-law of Sugg. He became swampland register in 1871. But that office, that position, had been abolished by the state legislature in 1869. But yet the county commissioners still maintained that office and still appointed somebody to be the swampland register.
So we have a man appointed over the county. We have commissioners imported also. We have land deals and swamp cleaning deals that are all going on by the same group.
Right.
Well, how did this turn out?
Well, it turned out that there were just more lawsuits involved because in 1870, Rathbun not only made a contract for the swampland with Suggs, he also took a document that the county commissioners had given him. He altered it to show that he had authority to sell 203,000 acres of swampland. He went to New York. He sold this 203,000 acres of land to a man in New York by the name of Otis N. Cutler. He sold this land for $15,000.
200,000 acres of swampland
Yes.
that he really didn't own.
No, he did not.
He sold in New York. Well, I've heard of selling the Brooklyn Bridge. I'd like to show you some swampland in Florida, but he really sold this for $15,000.
Yes, he did.
In New York.
Yes, he did.
Do you have a record of that transaction? Is there something on the books about that?
There is a circuit court case where the men were indicted in 1878 for this different fraudulent land conveyance. Somewhere along the line, a paper was filed in the court concerning this law case, and they waited 15 years to act upon the case. In that 15 years, some of the Suggs heirs sold some of this land to other people, told them that they had legal title to this land, and sold it to these various different people. These people then improved the land and had homesteads on some of this land. So naturally, when this court case came up with a deed would be declared void, then these purchasers of the land really didn't have legal title to it. However, the court decided that those that purchased the land, thinking they had clear title to it, were given the land. So they retained ownership of it. But it, according to the Supreme Court, the case had a checkered past, meaning that there were court cases that went all the way to, on change of venues, to Howe County in West Plains, to Jefferson County, St. Louis. They were in Penobscot County. There were just multiple lawsuits.
The records are all destroyed here in Dunklin County, conveniently destroyed.
With the exception of one record, and that was Patent Book number 1.
How did that not get destroyed?
Daniel Brewer was the Register of Swamplands at that time when the courthouse burned. He had heard the rumors that this land, that the courthouse was going to be burned because of this land transaction. He took that swampland patent book home with him, and he kept it hidden for a year before he told anybody he had it. When he brought it back to the courthouse, the county justices made him give it to Benjamin T. Walker, who then became Register of Swamplands. And if you look at that original record book that's in the county clerk's office,
where is that book?
It's in the county clerk's office.
Oh.
There are lots of Sugg patents registered in this volume, but the date that is given to them for when they were recorded, Mr. Brewer claims he had the book in his possession. There's no way that they could have been recorded. And the handwriting is all the same, the ink is the same color, so you can tell that even though they're recorded on, say they were recorded on separate dates, they were done at the same time. So probably what Benjamin T. Walker did was to enter these transactions far after the fact to make it convenient to look as if Mr. Sugg had been given the patent.
How much land would you say really was lost by the county to these people who had homesteaded? How much of the 40,000 acres was given to that family? Were they ever given any amount of land outright as a settlement from the courts?
I don't think so.
All right. So only the people who bought the property from them
And had made improvements.
And had made improvements, were the only people who were allowed to keep part of that property.
Right.
Well, a lot of things went on that were very interesting here in Dunklin County right after the Civil War. You've heard just a portion of those things, and I think we haven't even touched the hem of the garment, but you've listened to Joan Fizor as she's told us an extremely interesting story about the exchange of some swampland and all the circumstances that surrounded it.
You have been